Do you find yourself trying to think your way out of what you're feeling, rationalising the anger or explaining the sadness or guilt? Or perhaps you go straight to the chocolate or wine or pizza to soothe yourself, instead of really feeling what you feel when you feel uncomfortable. We've all done it, but the advice from my guest today is to stop trying to feel better and instead get better at feeling. Tamsin is a former physiotherapist who retrained as a coach and trainer. She's also the creator of The Listening Space, a structured process that uses what she calls clean language to get at the heart of what you're feeling. In this episode, Tamsin guides me through a demonstration of this technique, which helped me uncover a new way of understanding my own intuition. And there are some great tips and techniques that you can use with either yourself or with a colleague. So if you're ready to learn how to feel those difficult feelings and feel better without being overwhelmed, then do have a listen to this episode.
I'm Tamsin Hartley. I'm director of The Listening Space. I'm a coach and an author, and I love working creatively with people.
It's great to have you on the podcast, Tamsin. I'm really interested to talk to you because you talk about feelings, which is something that I don't think we're very good at as doctors and people in healthcare, partly because the pace of life is so fast, it's quite difficult to have the time to feel our feelings, partly because a lot of us think, oh gosh, if I just stop and feel my feelings, will I be able to stop feeling my feelings? And consequently, I think a lot of us have just suppressed them. And sometimes we don't actually even know what they are or how to recognize them. But you've just told me that in order to feel better, we've got to get better at feeling. What exactly do you mean by that?
I mean, you're absolutely right. Most people don't want to feel, particularly the uncomfortable feelings. I mean, why would you want to? And I think the problem is that many of us haven't learnt as we grow up that you can feel and it's going to be okay. You can feel discomfort and you'll be met in your distress. And that emotional energy that comes from whatever fear, whatever uncomfortable emotion that lies beneath the surface, it will pass. And what happens is we become in fear of the feeling itself. And there is a metaphor that I use, I'll just pick it up, as a ball of discomfort. And one way of seeing the feelings that you have of discomfort is to imagine them to be like a ball that sits within you. Not nice to feel. What most of us will do is we'll either pretend it's not there, we'll try and cover it up, we might try and hand our ball on to somebody else, we'll medicate, we'll drink, we'll eat, anything to avoid the feeling. But what that lets your brain, your more reactive brain, know is that actually you need to be frightened of this ball. And so it's like pumping that ball up with fear. The feelings, that emotional energy doesn't get to just pass through your body, which it will do naturally if you allow yourself to feel. The emotional energy that builds up in your body generates a stress response, which over time can create chronic physical symptoms, pain, bowel symptoms. I mean, the stress response affects your whole body, or can affect every part of your body. So if you learn to feel and to know that this ball of discomfort will, in time, deflate itself, the emotional energy will dissipate, i.e. you get better at feeling, the byproduct is to feel better over time.
So what do we miss if we don't feel? Apart from feeling better because you've let the energy go through you, what else do we miss by really avoiding those feelings and being fearful of them?
I mean, there's the negative impact, but I think there's also, many negative impacts, but I think that someone shared with me a metaphor for being with our feelings. And I'm not a sound technician, but sound technicians will have a slider board to dial up different aspects of sound. You might want a bit more on the bass, might want a little bit less on the treble. It would be nice if our emotions worked in that way, that you could dial down rage and fear and dial up happiness. But actually, the way it works is more like a master control volume dial. If you dial down on fear and rage, you also dial down on joy and happiness, love, connection. So you can miss out on the whole range of your feelings.
Wow. So you're saying when we suppress these feelings because they feel too uncomfortable, we're also suppressing the good stuff and we're not then getting access to the really good stuff.
Yes, and a lot of the work, so I work with people with chronic physical symptoms in a mind-body kind of way. And a big part of that is actually finding joy, finding things that nourish you. So it's not just being able to be with the discomfort so that emotional energy discharges itself. It's being able to feel the whole range of your emotions.
You talked about feeling better, not suppressing these emotions. You talked about if you dial down the negative emotions, you're also going to dial down the positive emotions as well. What do we do instead? What ways do we suppress our feelings? I mean, I know one way I do is, I guess, just like, I'll think about this later, or, let's distract myself with something else. What else do we do to avoid stuff?
Distraction, absolutely. Covering it up with, we medicate, we drink, eat. I think one other thing that we do is try and pass that ball on to somebody else. You feel my anger for me. And we don't do that consciously. None of this is done consciously, or most of it is done below conscious awareness. But if I discharge that anger onto you, or that fear, or that sadness, then I don't need to feel it. Actually, equally, it is possible to take on the feelings of others inadvertently. And you might notice that, for example, if you go into a meeting or you go into a situation at home and you suddenly think, I'm suddenly feeling a feeling about something. I'm suddenly feeling a bit annoyed about something. And I wasn't before I came in the room. You might be curious, possibly there's a feeling that you're picking up from somebody else. You go in to see a patient and you find yourself getting a bit annoyed and enraged. It is possible that that's a feeling that they have that is too uncomfortable for them to feel. And again, below conscious awareness.
So feelings are pretty contagious.
Absolutely.
I think one thing I've seen in myself and a lot of doctors is that, yes, we can try and pass them on to other people with anger and stuff like that. But also, I think I can think myself out of feelings. Is that possible or not?
It's definitely possible. And I would say a lot of the people who come that I work with, it's very easy they can get to a stage of talking about the feeling, but talking the feeling isn't feeling it. And I wonder if I could share a story here, because this is an example of a client who really, feeling for her was just too overwhelming. Because when we don't allow our feelings, there is a risk that they kind of explode into the present moment, and it can feel overwhelming. And so suddenly this feeling that is no longer just a part of you feels like it's the whole of you. And she described a feeling that she had very uncomfortable when she arrived at work. And she realized that she said, I have another metaphor. I have lots of metaphors. We talk about having a bucket of capacity for balls of discomfort, and everything that feels emotionally charged becomes like a bucket filler. And these little balls of emotion fill that bucket. And she said, I realised that by the time I get to work, my bucket's already full. I've got 2 children at home. One has ADHD, the other is autistic, and there's a lot of emotional charge. And she talked about, for example, this morning, my son slammed the door. And she said, and I just felt it. And she went here to her chest with her hand. And so we use that as a way of connecting with a feeling and seeing what happens when you just stay with that feeling. Because she carried that feeling. She identified that she was scared. Now, scared is a very old feeling for her. She has a lot of history of trauma in her childhood. So this slamming of door had triggered something for her. I said, okay, shall we just get a bit curious about that feeling? And I used these questions, clean language questions, that I've come to find really helpful for helping to inviting someone to connect with their inner experience. So I said to her, what kind of scared? She said, well, it feels horrible. It feels inside. I can just feel it there. Anything else about scared? She said, well, I've carried it with me to work. This wasn't helping her concentrate at work. That's the work we're doing, being able to concentrate and fulfill her work. the commitments, but what she carried with her into work was impacting her. Whereabouts is scared? It's here in my chest, right across here. Is scared on the inside or the outside? It's inside. Does scared have a size or a shape? She said it's like a dark, dark storm cloud, and it's just filled with rain, and the pressure is building. And the problem is, I've no idea, but a storm cloud brings lightning and thunder. I've no idea when the thunder's going to happen, and lightning can cause damage. And so this gave a very tangible sense for her of this unpleasant feeling, emotional energy that had built up in her body. Asked her some more questions, she even drew it. And the next stage was to be able to stay with the feelings in her body so that she no longer needed to be in fear of them. What she does is she tries to shift away from them. So I said, well, let's just stay with that feeling, but know that right now you're safe in your body. Stay with that feeling of scared and just be curious about it. Just know that that's emotional energy and it will pass through your body in its own time. And she did. At the beginning of this staying with it, the experience felt like about a 9 out of 10 intensity for her. She thought she was going to flip into a panic attack, which is not uncommon for her. So she stayed with the feeling, and I just stayed. And I said, just stay, be curious. What's happening now? And stay with that feeling. It reduced 7 out of 10, 6 out of 10, down to a 3. And for her, that was an absolute revelation that she could have a feeling that was about to flip into a panic attack, stay with it, and it passed. She'd never had that experience before. And the lovely thing is that she's teaching that to her kids now. And she's teaching her kids about this bucket with the balls so that her son can now say to his teacher, that's a ball there. And they've noticed a change in his behaviour at school.
What are we scared of that might happen with these feelings?
For many people, it's going to be different for different people, isn't it? But it just feels so overwhelming that I guess you fear that you're going to lose yourself in it, that you're not going to be able to control it. But the paradox is that by not controlling it and allowing it, you actually have an experience of it passing through the body, just as this particular client did.
Yeah, so what I'm struggling with is this idea of feeling your feelings. So when you say to someone, just sit with it and really feel it, if someone hasn't been used to feeling feelings, what does that mean to actually feel it?
That is a really good question, because some people really just do not, it's all from the head up.
Yeah.
And I know people who've said, well, as I started to feel, I realized I always thought my body was just a taxi that brought me around from A to B. And actually now I realize that my body has something to tell me. And it was all, I felt very disconnected from my body. That's not unusual. And so you have to start little and be kind to yourself and just know that it's a practice, a little bit at a time. And maybe you start with something more tangible, like, can I feel my feet on the ground? Can I feel my seat on the bottom, my seat on the chair, rather than what emotion am I feeling? If that just doesn't feel available to you. Even I worked with somebody who really doesn't find it easy to get in touch with her feelings. She said, I'm just going to put my cardigan on. I'm feeling cold. Great. I'm feeling cold. Allow yourself to notice what your body is telling you. That can sound daft, but some people don't even know when they're hungry because they're so not used to feeling the sensations. They're connecting with the interoception.
Does every feeling that we have tell us something about our needs or boundaries or anything like that? Or sometimes they just come and go for no reason?
Well, I don't really know the answer to that. I suspect that we have most feelings for a reason. I sometimes say that is whether we pay attention to them or not. But, at a fundamental level, emotional energy, feelings, sensations in your body. Feelings can be either emotions or sensations in the body. Sensations in the body are just a physical representation of manifestation of the emotion that's underlying there, beneath the surface. Beneath those emotions, there's going to be a story that you're telling yourself. Sometimes you have access to that, sometimes not. becoming more aware of your feelings, gives you a point of checking in with yourself. What am I telling myself about this situation? What am I thinking about myself? What's the story I'm holding about this situation? But fundamentally, that emotional energy is designed to move you towards safety and away from danger, if you bring it down to its very simple level. And I think the other thing is, when you get better at feeling your feelings, it enables you to discharge the energy. I mean, if you think about it, if this is your brain, a lot of the discomfort arises from amygdala-driven thoughts that maybe are unconscious, that there is threat. I mean, your amygdala is designed to seek for threat. If you stay with the feeling and it settles down, you can then engage your prefrontal cortex and challenge the assumptions that you might have, challenge the thoughts, invite a kind of curiosity about, well, actually, is this true? And very often people will say to me when they stay with the feelings, when they start to notice the story beneath the surface, I'm creating this story for myself. I'm creating this pressure on myself. Of course, there may be times where there is real threat and you need to act, but it's not always so.
I think this is fascinating. The patterns that I've noticed, yes, either we completely dismiss the feeling and we think, right, or we blame ourselves for feeling it. Why am I feeling scared? Or why am I feeling stressed or sad or upset? I shouldn't be able to, I'm a professional. I shouldn't feel like that. And then you get the issue that you say they build up and you're suppressing them. And actually that ball's getting bigger and building rather than getting less.
I'm just going to interrupt. That's a lovely example, because you've had this feeling and you go up into your head. Why am I feeling like this? What's the answer? Probably shame. I shouldn't be. Then you're pumping up your ball even more.
Yeah, that's interesting, because what I find sometimes is I am feeling a feeling and then I'll go up into my head and go, why am I feeling that feeling? I might be feeling a bit disgruntled or pissed off, and I'll generally blame one of my family. Oh, it's because my husband's not being nice enough to me, or this or that happened. And sometimes I'm just hungry or tired, or there's something that's happened maybe a couple of hours ago that I haven't properly processed. So I'm then attributing the feeling to the wrong thing, or to someone that it's sort of more safe to take it out on even. I don't know. Is that a problem that you see quite a lot?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about that, it's a lovely example, and if you think about that dark storm cloud, what's that going to do? The lightning that she talked about could be snapping at her colleague. It could be snapping at her kids when she gets home. Her child was just overwhelmed and needed to be met in his distress. And she didn't have capacity at that time, with all of this, just to bring some kindness to yourself, because we're all vulnerable underneath.
Are we frightened of other people's emotions as well, then?
I think, yes, we can be. And I think we become less frightened of other people's feelings when we felt those feelings ourselves, and we realise that we have capacity, and we realise that feelings pass. And I know that for myself, in the work that I do with clients, I'm not worried about their feelings. I don't take them on as my own. And I suppose there's also that you can sit with someone in their distress, in their big emotions, and not have to you don't have to take them on as your own, but you can still hold space for them, for that feeling to be present.
Yeah, I think with doctors, we don't just take them on as our own. We feel either responsible for them or like we have to fix them or solve them.
There are some lovely comments, actually, since I interviewed a couple of clinicians who are working in palliative care who are using clean language questions. And I'll read some of the comments, because the impact that using some of these questions, essentially it helps to prevent them to go into rescuer. I don't know if your listeners are aware of the drama triangle.
We talk about that a lot. Yeah. Where you get, just quickly describe the drama triangle. It's described by Stephen Cartman in the 1960s, where you get into a sort of rescuer, victim or persecutor mode, and you just move around.
Yeah. So one way of seeing this, and kind of my take on it, is bringing awareness to yourself. What am I? What role am I in? It's very easy. In fact, you're usually in drama when you start pointing that, oh God, he's gone into rescuer or she's gone into victim. But this is about you. 3 roles, Stephen Cartman suggests, when something's not working the way that you'd want it to, you tend to go into one or more of these 3 roles. Rescuer, there's a leaning in. Can I suggest, have you thought about? And you might be saying these things out loud or just in your head. Victim, disempowered, full of shame, poor me, if only I were stronger, better, braver, whatever. And then persecutor, pointing the finger of blame, blaming others. So these questions, clean language questions, and I haven't explained what they are, but they have helped these people not go into rescuer so much, because perhaps I ought to just explain what clean language questions are. They were created by a New Zealander called David Grove, and you're simply repeating back some of the other person's words, a few words, a short phrase, and using one of the questions that he devised. And these questions help to minimize the contamination of the conversation, that's the clean element, with your assumptions and your suggestions. So you just repeat back some, and probably the most commonly used question in a clinical setting might be, is there anything else about? So your patient might have said, I'm really scared. Is anything else about feeling scared? My question might be, what kind of scared? And what she noticed is that it's changed the way she works. This is the consultant in palliative care. She says, I listen more intently. I'm really noticing their words. I don't feel so much pressure to know the answer and to find solutions, and it feels easier. And I'm not always thinking about the next question. So what kind of? Anything else about? She said they tend to respond quickly, and often there's more to say. And there is another question that can be really useful, is what would you like to have happen? And she said, when I ask that question, there's often a pause and they think about it. And the response can be really clear and simple, something that can be achieved. I guess the fear is when you ask that question, well, they're going to ask me something that I can't give them. And they may have a whole host of problems with 8 or 10 issues that they're grappling with, but it gets to the core of it really quickly. And that can change everything. And it helps her to quickly uncover the real reasons behind a patient's visits. What a lovely thing to do. But the impact for her, and I thought this was so lovely, she said, work feels fun and fascinating again. And it's put a spring in my step going to work. She's got 20 years of clinical experience. I know the medical stuff, but this means I'm always learning. And she uses it a lot on herself. You know, I get a better sense of what would I like to have happen and what needs to happen for that. So there's a different sense of agency.
So you can use it for self-coaching or really coaching others within, a consultation or just a conversation. But actually the beauty of it, you don't need to go through any big coaching courses or anything. It's just really looking at and reflecting back the language somebody's already using. And this is particularly good for exploring your feelings. Is that right?
It is particularly good, but you can use it for exploring anything. These questions are used in so many settings: education, business, healthcare.
And what is it about these questions that make them so powerful, do you think?
They are surprisingly powerful because I think the person being asked the questions feels heard. And there is something about hearing your words repeated back and not, a friend of mine has a lovely expression. She said that these questions help to prevent you from speaking into the life of others, and they help prevent others from speaking into your life. And on the courses I run, I always just invite people to go away and notice when someone speaks into your life and says, oh, I think you should do this. Oh, I know just how you feel. Yes. This is what's happening. Just notice how it feels for you. Sometimes it can be helpful, but it isn't always. When somebody goes into fix-it mode around you, it can deny you of exploring your own experience for yourself.
And that fix-it mode, gosh, I see myself going into it so often. I'm not so bad at it with, clients and stuff, but with friends, this is what you should do, this blah, blah, blah. And it's really hard, but just that phrase, what would you like to have happen? It feels a little bit clumsy to me, grammar wise, but I'm presuming there's some very specific reasons for saying to have happen.
Yes, I can't remember what tense it is. I'm going to be honest, I don't use that question a lot. I don't use it a lot in my coaching, but I know that clinicians are finding it really helpful. It's a different kind of context when you're with a patient and there's information to be gathered and you want to find out what that patient wants to have happen. In my coaching, I'll often get someone to really stay with their current experience. It's a different setting, it's a different context. I wouldn't use that question with a friend necessarily. Doesn't feel quite natural to me, but it can be very helpful in a setting where you've got a kind of contract to, I mean, people do use it with friends if it feels natural, but it's inviting you to go beyond the having happened and look back on it.
Yes, that's just what I was thinking, because I can imagine if you said to a patient, what would you like to happen? That, well, I want to go out of this room with a prescription of something and with a plan and go and see this consultant. Whereas if you say, what would you like to have happened or have happen? Which one is it?
Have happen. What would you like to have happen?
What would you like to have happen? So that takes you to the outcome, not the process.
In a way, yes. And I think what's interesting as well, because this particular consultant said there's something about the intention, the mindset with which you go into asking these questions. I call it a clean mindset. And it's I don't know. I'm curious. Tell me how it is for you. I'm not literally saying that, but that's what my clean mindset is saying, right, okay, well, I'm assuming all of these things, that you've got all of these things going on, and I'm just going to put that to one side. And I'm opening a space for you to tell me how it is for you. That's a clean mindset. And so she said that actually she notices when she drops into these questions, they come from her heart, whereas many other questions come from her head. And I thought that was a really nice observation. You know, you're a human being with me as a human being. Tell me how it is for you. And then you're gathering information from which you might be able to give a different kind of treatment plan, whatever it might be, the context in which you're working with that person.
Is it all about the insight, I'm thinking? Because I guess as the coach, as the trainer, what we're always trying to do is get people to have that aha moment, that moment of realization. Like you were saying with that lady who had that ball of fear, and she realized she was taking it into work, and it was just, she was really scared of it. For me, coaching doesn't work until someone has realized something, then they're able to solve that problem. But if you're going around the edges, so a lot of people come to me, for coaching, say, oh, I just need to manage my time more. I need to manage my emails. And if I just coach someone managing their emails, that wouldn't work, because that's not the real problem. And we have to spend quite a lot of time working out what is the reason why they feel that they absolutely have to be at inbox zero, or they can't do that. And often, it comes down to the I'm not good enough or whatever. And then once you've got the actual issue underlying it, then you can work out how to manage your email. Is it another way of getting to that?
It does get to the that you refer to. It's a really nice way of doing that. However, you as a coach, when I'm working as a coach, have to let go of the desire for that to happen.
Yeah.
You have to sit in the trust of, because then you're it's almost like you're like the getting better at feeling rather than feeling better. It's almost like, as I see it, this is a bottom-up modelling process. You don't know how you do you. I can ask some questions that help you figure that out. And I don't know where we're going with this, because if I do, I'm not being clean. If I do, that's my model of the world. I might have a sense of it. I can direct questions in a place that might be useful for you. I have no idea whether this is going to help you or not. I just trust that as you gain awareness of yourself, something useful will happen.
And do you always try and focus on people's feelings?
Only if they want to go there. I often talk to people about the difference between right and left brain processing. Our world is very left brain oriented, structure, sequence, plan forwards, label, categorize. We don't often pay attention to what our body is telling us. So we only have half the story there. That's massively simplified, of course. Both sides of the brain involved in everything we do. But we don't always listen to the wisdom of the body, of what our body is trying to say. And these questions are quite nice for inviting awareness. That scared became a dark storm cloud. An awareness that becomes very tangible, that enables you to slightly sort of step back from it and let it be part of you rather than the whole of you, and see what information it gives and see what might work better instead for you without trying to force change.
So how would you use this clean language model to start to feel your own feelings and understand yourself more?
You can ask these questions of yourself. There are the questions are available in the book that I've written, The Listening Space. I mean, I could ask these questions of you so that listeners, or we could do a meditation. Actually, you could ask these. We could do a meditation on anything, and then your listeners could have a go and just seeing what arises for them.
Let's do that, because I think it'd be good for people to experience this. I know a lot of people listen to this in the car or on the treadmill or on a walk. Is that okay if you're walking around? You don't have to be like lying on a yoga mat with your eyes shut for this, do you? Or can you listen?
No, you can be walking around. I suggest you're probably not driving, but so long as you stay paying attention, it's going to be
folks.
Stay conscious. You can use these questions for anything, for any form of self-inquiry. And so one thing we could do, if you like, is I have a set of cards that have different, values, whatever, and we could use them. You could choose one. Just tell me when to stop, and we could use that as a focus of meditation.
Let's go for it. So Tamsin is showing me her values card. Let's have a look then.
You don't get to choose which, as in just let me know.
Okay, just stop.
Okay. Intuition. So we can use these questions just to bring awareness of what intuition means for you. And, you may find things arising for you and you may not. Either way is fine. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to give you an instruction followed by a set of questions. And what I'm going to do is pause after each question and just notice what arises for you, if anything. So intuition, and thinking about what intuition means for you. So giving yourself time now, Rachel, to really notice for you. And you might want to close your eyes or just soften your gaze as you do this. So just notice for yourself, what kind of intuition is that?
It is like a personal wisdom.
Personal wisdom. And is there anything else about intuition?
It's quietly nagging.
Quietly nagging. And whereabouts is intuition?
It's in the inside.
And whereabouts?
I think it's, lower gut.
Lower gut. Okay. Lower gut, and it's personal wisdom. And does intuition have a size or a shape?
Yeah, it feels a bit flat.
A bit flat?
Yes.
Yeah?
My listeners are going to think I'm mad. Because it's not there. I can't go, there it is. Because it's when I'm intuitive about something, it just feels something's a bit off or not quite right, or there's this sort of background niggle. So it's sort of like wrapping around things. It's not like a particular ball. It's not like a big ball that's somewhere. It's more of almost like a sheet that would wrap around things.
Okay, so it's almost like a sheet, wrap around things, and a background niggle, like a bit off. And does intuition have a sound?
A low hum.
Okay. Anything else? Low hum. Anything else about intuition?
Sometimes it becomes a louder hum, and that's when I worry that it's fear taking over rather than intuition.
Okay. So it's sometimes it's louder hum, and you worry about that's when fear taking over.
Yeah, I never quite know when to trust my intuition, because I never know if it's a genuine, this is the deep wisdom, or it's like I'm just reacting. I'm just reacting to something with my amygdala. That's what I worry about.
Okay. And intuition is like a sheet wrapping around a thing, and it's a low hum and sometimes louder. Anything else? Yeah,
there is sometimes this louder. There's this louder thing where I feel that I really know something, and then actually I am wrong because because I've been interpreting it's that through the fear, shame, or guilt stuff rather than the sort of background. But sometimes I ignore that intuition in the background because I really want something to be true that isn't. For example, if you were working with a certain person that you would really love that working relationship to work out with, but there's something humming in the background that this isn't quite right, but you really want it to be okay. Like, I don't know, you got a new partner at work or something like that, and you're desperate for this person, but they're really not the right person, and your intuition's going, it's really not, but you're like going, no, I'm going to ignore that because we really need this thing to work out.
Okay, in a background humming. And I could ask that question again and again. Is there anything else about intuition? But I'm going to move on to just invite you to represent intuition on paper in some way. It might be an image, it might be a word. No one's going to see it. Well, you can show, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, so I'm drawing it's like a background of the sun, actually, with the beams, but it's a setting sun. So like the beams aren't really, really strong. It's not bright in the sky. You can't see it, but you can see the glow over the horizon.
Okay, so what do you notice as you look at what you've drawn?
That it's strong, but you have to notice it. You have to be in certain, if there's something other shiny thing over here, you're not gonna notice it. There'd be if there's clouds around you, you're not going to notice it either. So it's strong and it's there, but there's other things that can cloud it out.
Okay. Anything else about what you notice?
I guess you could trust the sun. The sun is always there, and it's it's not like it's one day not going to show up, and it's not going to be the sun. It is right. It is the sun.
So what do you know now about intuition?
That it is that thing that's in the background, that's quiet, that you can trust, that is always there, but there are things that cloud it out, and that you need to be in the right conditions, I think, to be able to pay attention to it.
And what difference does knowing that make?
I think when I have this gut feeling that there is something not quite right or something wrong with feeling about it, I clock it and I know it's there, and I then make the time to get into the right conditions to explore it and to clear the sky and to clear the horizon, so I can actually properly look at what it is and what's going on.
And that's a listening space.
That was really helpful, actually, because I have been struggling with this. I am quite intuitive with this, but I'm also quite impulsive with ADHD. That, I'm impulsive. So if I act on what I think is intuition, but it isn't, it's just fear or something else, then I'm going to make a lot of wrong decisions. And I have in the past made some quite, decisions that weren't that helpful. So actually, that I think what I would do with this is, when I do have that background buzz of is then sit with that, and then maybe explore the feeling more, try and work out what that feeling, what the intuition is telling me in much more of an unclouded area. Make sure my nervous system is settled down, that I'm not experiencing a threat at the time. And
the lovely thing about metaphor is that, for example, if you were working with a colleague and you shared that, they could help you check in. What's the sun telling you? And I'm going to share an example of, the metaphor is just fascinating. Connecting with your feelings can bring a richness of information that we don't always access. I think there are many cultures that access it better. But this is a story from a client recently who works in the NHS, and she's happy for me to share her metaphor. She said, she's autistic, and she said, I can't help myself. When I'm working with people, I find it really frustrating because very often and she's talked about an oxbow river. Now, I'm not a geographer, but my understanding is that they meander and sort of curve back on themselves. She said, I can't help it. I've got to go. She said, I've got to go the shortcut, the neck of the oxbow. I get really frustrated with people doing this. And yet it had caused some difficulties in relationships with colleagues. And I said to her, well, that's really helpful because this is really useful, the neck. There would be situations, I imagine, if you're working in ITU or A&E, you're going to be doing the neck more of the time. And so I said, that metaphor could be really useful for you because you have a choice point. Sorry, I'm pointing to the point where the river starts to bend and the neck is the possibility. I said, at that point, you then, rather than just automatically going across here, you could have a choice as to whether you allow for a bit of meandering, because what that does is get other people on board and you get the collective wisdom. But it means you can do it choicefully from your prefrontal cortex rather than got to go across the neck. And the impact for her was that next time she chaired a meeting, she was able to canvass opinion, and people actually came up to her afterwards and asked about, other areas of work that they might work together. And the impact, it's totally understandable. And you can see how the meandering would be frustrating, but she's starting to see that through this metaphor, she's got a choice point.
It absolutely makes sense. And I think this idea of sharing this stuff with colleagues, obviously you need to trust them, but it's really, really helpful, so I can imagine my colleagues saying, Rachel, just calm down. What's the sun telling you here? Or are you in a position where, are there too many clouds there? Are you in a position where you can listen to the sun or whatever? And that's, I love that oxbow thing. She's recognized that this is the time I'm going to choose to let someone go off meandering. And that feels so much more empowering than having to put up with someone meandering around, doesn't it?
Yes. So many ways in which these awarenesses can be helpful.
I can see how what you're talking about will work with patients, with colleagues, with ourselves. So what we're talking about is this method of using clean language to help people examine what's going on for them without inserting your assumptions, without fixing it, without rescuing, without being in victim with them or with ourselves. And it can be really, really effective. And what I love is that it can help develop some metaphors. I love metaphors. They're so useful, and they're so useful just communicating stuff with other people. It's a real shortcut, isn't it?
Yes, and it can be, if you use the wrong metaphor, or if you don't hear the metaphor that your patient is using, you can use a mismatch. And I'm thinking of so many of the metaphors in medicine are about war, the fight against disease, battle, germ warfare, and that's not necessarily the way that people want to experience particularly their chronic conditions.
If someone wants to start using clean language, or if someone wants to start being able to feel their feelings more, what 3 top tips would you give them?
So the top tips I would give, and I think it's that simple notion that the aim isn't to get to feel better. It's about getting better at feeling, and bring kindness to yourself as you do so. This feeling is part of you. It's a part of you that wants to be heard. Bring kindness to yourself. And also, that metaphor is a lovely way of bringing awareness to yourself.
Wonderful. And can you just go through those 3 questions again for us? Because I think people will be like, I've forgotten. What did she say again?
So probably the most conversational clean language question, and I would use that every day just as a way of checking out, is what kind of? So if my, daughter comes to me and says, I'm frustrated, or what kind of frustrated? It's light touch. It's like, okay. It just gives you a way of finding out more. The next is there anything else about? That's like a way of saying, do you want to say more about that? I can share the clean questions. There are links there's a whole set of clean questions. There are 12 basic, 20 or so specialized, but those are really, you can go a long way with those 2. And is there anything else about? And then what would you like to have happen?
I'm going to experiment with those 3 this week. That's wonderful, Tamsin. Thank you so much. If people want to find more about your work, get hold of you, how can they do that?
I have a website, The Listening Space. I have a YouTube channel, but all the links are on the website. Links to information about the book. There are some free downloads of meditations. Yeah.
That's great. I think those are going to be really, really valuable for people. So thank you so much for being on, and we look forward to speaking to you again sometime.
Thank you for inviting me.